Hello everyone. After a brief hiatus, actually a slightly longish hiatus, we at Nexus Consulting are back with another episode of The Road Less Taken. This time we have a 3-episode mini-series, all themed around sport, where we talk to 3 very interesting personalities from 3 different sports who've made a mark for themselves in slightly different capacities across the 3 sports. My name is Venky Srinivasan, your host as always. And today, my guest on TRLT is the very, very interesting Nasser Hussain, the CEO of Rugby India. Let's welcome him and hear his story. Hi Nasser, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to The Road Less Taken.
Thank you, pleasure to be here.
So you have a very interesting story and you are part of a very interesting organization, I can say a movement in India. So fascinating to talk about it. Let me ask you the pretty obvious kind of first question. Where did your own love for the sport called rugby come, and how did it come on in your formative years when you were in school, college in Bombay? Just tell us about that.
To be honest, I got involved in rugby. I didn't really have a choice, to be honest. My dad used to play, I was kind of arm twisted into getting into the sport. I started playing rugby actually quite late. So straight after my ICSE exams, 10th standard. So at the age of 15, which is pretty late to start a sport. Prior to that, obviously in school, played a lot of football, cricket, part of athletics. So I had a sort of foundation in sport, but only took on rugby when I passed out of school. And that's how I got involved. And there's been no looking back since then.
Yeah. And when was the first, what's your first memory of wearing the India cap, so to say, and representing the country in a rugby test?
So very, very special. Still remember it till date. It was my first very international and India's very first international as well.
Okay.
So back in 1998, where the first Indian team went out to play in the Asian Championship. Why was it special? Obviously, one, because I was part of that team. The other, my dad was the captain and I was the youngest player on that side. So,
wow.
It was a fantastic sort of celebration for us.
Interesting, very interesting. So did you then kind of decide at that moment that it was going to be a full-fledged playing career for you? Was that really even a viable opportunity at that time to just play rugby professionally?
We didn't really think about it too much that back then. It was more, you played it, you enjoyed it, you wanted to still play more. As it happened, I had an opportunity to play a bit of rugby in the UK, just through some players or friends. Went across, played for a club there for a bit. And then that kind of led to another, and I enrolled at university and did my master's there while I played for university and a club.
Okay.
You just wanted to be on the field at any given time, and any opportunity that you got, you kind of took it. It wasn't planned, was always inclined towards sport, and it so happened that I wanted to study it as well, and managed to do my master's in sports management.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'll come back to another question I have about players, managing sport a little later. But let me first ask you about rugby and India. What is India's recorded history of rugby? I think very few people know about it. Did the Brits play it here when they were here? And has there been some continuation of the sport over the last 70, 80 years?
So there's been a rich sort of history and heritage to rugby in India. It obviously started with the British back in early 1900s. So it's been around for over 100 years. But majority of that time, it was actually restricted to just a few centers, mainly Bombay and Calcutta.
Right.
But I think in the last 20 odd years, we've seen a sort of shift and a change, especially in the last decade, where it's kind of grown and spread across the country. Currently, to give you in terms of stats, we've got 27 states playing actively, men, women, and age grade rugby. And yeah, I mean, the sports part of the services, the paramilitary, the police. Like I said, you've got it's part of the school games, the university games. So it has come a long way since I started playing. And yeah, I mean, the future is looking bright, and for all sport for that matter in the country.
Yeah. Interesting you touched upon that. So the perception of rugby as being a particularly, if I can say, contact sport, potentially violent sport, etc., and the lack of too much of knowledge about it, does that impact kids getting into the game, especially girls?
Very much so. I mean, that is the biggest challenge that we've had to overcome, or obstacle that's been there, is to break that sort of mindset or perception. What has helped is training and education, the awareness that we're spreading. Also, being a bit innovative in terms of introducing kids or the youth to rugby. So we've used the non-contact format, which is touch rugby, which is a lot of fun. I mean, if you look at a lot of your Southern Hemisphere cricket teams, they play a lot of touch rugby when a game is washed out, or it's great for team building. It has a lot of benefits besides the fitness and health aspect. So that's been really well received with the kids, the parents, the teachers, and we've not just taken the sport to the kids, but also got their parents involved so that they can get a feel of it. Because I mean, the easiest is if they have a buy-in. It's easy for the kids to be given that permission, and also the teachers. So it's been a slow sort of progress, but it's been a steady one, I would say.
Okay. And have you seen pockets of the country take to it a bit more than the others? I was reading somewhere that Odisha, for example, is like a state that really seems to have taken to it. Does anything explain why some parts of the country like it more than the others?
So we've been actually taken aback by the response we've received from states like Orissa, from Bihar, likes of Chhattisgarh. So states where we didn't really think that would take on the sport, and especially women's game in those states. I mean, the likes of Jammu and Kashmir, you have girls playing in scarves and hijab. And I mean, if you thought about it, you would be a bit apprehensive in terms of pushing the development in those parts of the country. But we've been proven wrong, and we're pretty happy that we have been, that they've taken on. I think what we've experienced is there is lack of opportunity for these sort of people from these sort of communities, or especially the rural parts of the country and the tribal areas. And I mean, they've welcomed us with open arms and have sheer talent as well.
So do you mean like lack of opportunities in other sports?
Just I think in organized sport, in just generally. I mean, if you look at, especially a team sport, I mean, you obviously hear a lot of individual athletes, especially in contact sports. I mean, India is known for contact sports, be it wrestling, boxing, but a team sort of sport for the women. I mean, we're now seeing the cricket team, the hockey team doing pretty well in the girls. And I mean, we're quite pleased that we've managed to break that sort of a trend early with rugby. And there's been a massive sort of response from states like Orissa, Bihar, that have taken on rugby and have enjoyed it.
So what really is Rugby India's mandate? And as CEO, what are some of the key things you are trying to push forward as imperatives at the moment?
So, I mean, credit to the Rugby India board as well. The last sort of 5-7 years, our focus has been purely on grassroots development, on spreading the base, getting more sort of participation, especially at the age grade level. So there's a lot of focus on under 14, under 18, and that age group, both boys and girls, and the push towards school games. Obviously, we only had a certain sort of amount of funding, and we had to choose between spending it on a national team or on grassroots. And I think it was a unanimous sort of decision that We need to spend it on the grassroots,
Fantastic.
build up a certain sort of platform. I think now we've reached a stage where we want to invest in our high performance and our elite teams.
Right.
And we're pretty pleased that we have like the Orissa government who's been supporting us for the last few years and have actually believed in our vision and have come forward to support our high performance teams, not just with facilities, but also with in terms of financial support and resources as well.
You know, typically coaching is something, I guess, that becomes very key in this entire kind of ecosystem of development as you try and like bring people up from the grassroots to the elite level, as well as infrastructure. So tell us a little bit about both these. Where are we on having a pool of good qualified coaches, and where are we on the infrastructure side?
So like you rightly pointed out that I think the biggest challenge we face is not everyone knows what rugby is about. A few of us are still learning as we go along. But it's about sort of widening that base of coaches. So, I mean, World Rugby has been pretty sort of strong in terms of having a training and education program. So over the years, we've managed to get our senior people into these sort of courses, get their accreditation up. So we've got certified trainers and educators who can now deliver programs and certify coaches within the country itself.
Oh, nice.
Just like every other sport, we have a level 1, level 2, level 3 sort of certification. And there's a pathway for both coaches as well as match officials. We also actually address strength and conditioning and the medical side as well.
Right.
Because being a contact sport, we need the right sort of support pitch side in case of any injury so that we deal with it in the right manner. So there's been a lot of focus, but still I think where there's a mismatch in terms of the number of players as compared to the number of coaches and match officials. And that's something that is a continuous sort of thing that we're addressing going forward.
Right. And you do, I mean, at some level, I mean, it's not to compare, but at some level, you do have to keep fighting this battle with sports like cricket, right? Which are like top of the mind on spending, on viewership, on public consciousness, on talent, all of it.
I mean, we'd love to be in that position where we're fighting with cricket. I don't think we've reached there yet. But yeah, it is a struggle for most of the sports in terms of, I mean, like you mentioned, getting broadcasting space, visibility, attracting sponsors. So those are big challenges for upcoming sports. But like I said, we've seen a sort of a change within the sporting culture within India. So other sports are getting noticed and are being supported. And I think that's a positive that we need to take and move forward.
Do you think an IPL style rugby league will happen in India?
The thought has crossed our mind. We have worked upon it as well. But just because every other sport's doing it isn't reason enough for us to. It has to be meaningful. It has to have the right sort of return on investment, not just from a monetary point of view, but also in terms of growing the game, spreading the awareness. But yeah, it is something that we have thought of. And I mean, unfortunately, in the last 18 months, hasn't been conducive for any sport. And the leagues that you have seen, not many of them have actually come back for another season. So we might have to wait a little bit longer till things normalize so that we can hopefully roll something out.
Yeah. Tell us, one or two of the most, let me say, poignant stories that you've come across of people taking up the sport in this journey at Rugby India. You mentioned, girls in J&K playing with scarves and so on. So are there a couple of stories like that you'd like to quickly tell us?
Yeah, so there has been a few in terms of how the sport has been a catalyst for change and has kind of helped social transformation. I mean, one that sticks always, and I've mentioned it many a times, is the story of this girl from Orissa. So she comes from a very, very small village in Orissa. They don't even have electricity. So it's that kind of rural and tribal. And obviously predominantly male-dominated panchayat. the heads of the community are the ones who decide on everything that happens. So these girls managed to break that, play rugby. A lot of them from that sort of village have not even gone to the closest big city. And she's flown on a plane, gone to Hong Kong, to Paris to represent the country. And what's amazing is that when she goes back and she says that she's called amongst this all the old folk, and she's asked to talk about her experiences of flying in a plane. And there's like a video where she says that, and she's holding a rugby ball saying, if it wasn't for this, I would not have the confidence or be in a forum like this talking about my experiences. So yeah, that's I think really moving, and it's great to see that sport can do something like that.
Absolutely. A couple of last questions. One is, I want to ask you this whole, not just for rugby and your own experience, but in general, sportsmen who played the sport at the highest level, like you represented their country perhaps, or at least played at a very high level, coming into taking charge of administration of the sport, is that making a significant difference in terms of understanding, passion, structuring, all of that?
Well, I would hope so. But I think what you obviously you've been through the whole journey. You understand the challenges of an athlete. You know what you missed out on, or you weren't given because there wasn't enough opportunity there or resources available at that time. And had you been given that sort of support, maybe you would have done a bit better. And I think those are things that we're trying to provide to the next generation of players, is to give them opportunities that we didn't get as players, and hopefully give them more than that. Maybe the next generation might do things that we didn't do. And I think that's the circle of life in terms of giving back. But yeah, I mean, I hope we're doing something right and putting the players in a better position. And I think that's the bottom line of what everyone in Rugby India is involved in for.
And since it's Olympic season, I have to ask you this. Rugby Sevens is at the Olympics. You know, Fiji famously won it and so on. So is there a roadmap for India to be at the Olympics with the Rugby Sevens team and perhaps get a stand on the podium one day?
Well, definitely aspirations, yes. I mean, 24 might be a tough ask. 28 is something we want to try and work towards at least. So LA 2028. But yeah, I mean the Olympics for any sport is the pinnacle. And I think everyone needs to be focused, and you need I think 8 and 12 year sort of plan to reach it. It's not going to happen overnight. But yeah, it is something that we would love to be involved in. And I think all our energies are sort of geared towards, as of now, 2028. Hopefully, if not, then 32 is the next sort of milestone. But yeah, it is. I mean, along the way, you've got the Commonwealth Games, the Asian Games. So obviously, those would be stepping stones towards the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, couple of last questions. If someone's completely new to rugby and wants to get to know the sport, understand the sport, appreciate the sport, are there books, documentaries, films that what would you recommend to them to watch?
Well, I think I'd probably start with the challenge that we have is there's not much rugby on television. And so I can't say watch a game because you enjoy it. But yeah, definitely with access to internet, just Google something, get on it, have a look. And yeah, I mean, there's loads of information. I mean, we've got stuff up on our social media handles. It's Rugby India across all the handles that we have.
Great, yeah.
There's a lot of information up there. There are sort of online exams that you can get, can do. You can sort of accredit it and yourself as well on it. Yeah, in terms of movies, I mean, there have been a few Hindi movies which have a little sort of clip of rugby which might excite you.
Right.
And I mean, there's the most famous one would be in the English movies would be Invictus.
Invictus, of course.
Yeah. So in case you're a movie buff, that might be a movie that you might want to watch to get inspired.
Absolutely. And as one last question, this show is also targeted at people who are looking to make interesting choices with their careers and seek inspiration from people like you who've done that, who've gone away from the, let's say, the regular path of a work career. So you've both been a professional sportsman as well as an administrator of a sport. What would you tell parents or youngsters watching in terms of careers, both playing sport as well as being a part of the sporting ecosystem?
I think it's much easier now to consider sport as a. That's the little one.
No worries.
Yeah, he's going to turn one in a couple of days.
Oh, lovely, lovely, fantastic.
Proper lockdown, baby.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I was saying, it's much easier now for parents and for kids to look at sport from a career point of view. And it has grown considerably as an industry, both from a playing point of view as well as from a management or a sort of business point of view as well. I would say to everybody, even follow your dreams and passion. I've done it. I've been happy. And I hope you can as well. And yeah, I think it's about making a decision and sticking by it. Nothing comes easy. There's a hard work in every sort of field that you take, be it sport or business. And yeah, if you're determined and you want to do well, you'll have to put in the hard yards. So yeah, I think there's no shortcuts, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nasser Hussain. Thank you for your time and our best wishes. And here's hoping that under your leadership, Indian rugby will take great strides and produce champion players as we go forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that was Nasser Hussain telling us about the rich history of rugby in India and how Rugby India is trying to promote the sport and how he's seeing a lot of traction and some very impactful stories about how transformation at an individual level and even at a society level is happening through a sport like rugby. I hope that interested you, it inspired you. Please look up our YouTube channel, Nexus Consulting, for the full series of videos. We have 3 seasons of The Road Less Taken. All episodes in full and in short forms are available there, along with many of the quiz events that we've done as well. So if you're a quizzing aficionado, then there's something there for you as well. We'll meet you soon on the next episode of TRLT in continuation of the sports mini-series that we're doing. Till I see you then, this is Venky Srinivasan saying take care, stay safe, and bye-bye.